You're listening to Factual America. Congratulations on this finally being released. And my goodness, you guys have quite a filmography, but you must be pretty happy with this result.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're thrilled with the film. I mean, it was definitely these, as you may be aware, these feature docs, particularly the music ones, can sometimes be a real marathon.
Yeah.
You sort of start with a sort of dauntingly blank sheet of paper, and I guess in this one in particular, kind of the challenge or the daunting thing was that just simply this story has been told many times very well.
Yeah.
So what can we bring to it that will revitalize it, that will offer audiences something that they didn't know, that will frame it in a way that adds something to the narrative that people know. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely, that was the big challenge of this film. So I'm glad that you think we achieved that.
Yeah, I definitely think you achieved it. You definitely pulled it off. I mean, we normally ask the people who come on to give a little synopsis of the film. It seems kind of funny to ask that question because we are talking about Tina Turner, but maybe just so for our listeners, and some won't be as familiar with, of a certain generation and younger, maybe. Simon, we'll start off with you. What is this? What's this film about? Maybe give us a little synopsis.
Yeah,
of Tina.
I mean, just following on from what I was saying, everyone knows the contours of the Tina Turner story. It's one of the great music stories, or stories of a performer of our times. It's fundamentally a story of survival, of transcending a difficult life, a really difficult life, and triumphing in the face of adversity. So we know that, right? But what makes, I think, this film a bit different is that we're sort of reckoning with something else, which is Tina Turner in the sort of twilight of her life, looking back on her life and coming to terms with her story and the way it's been received. And this is something that she's always struggled with. She actually told her story of abuse at the hands of Ike Turner in order not to be defined by it, far from it, but actually to get away from it. So ultimately the film is about Tina coming to terms with that story and that legacy.
Yeah. And Jonathan, I think it's as Simon's already kind of is talking about, is that it's kind of hard to believe it's the first time the whole story has been told, isn't it? I mean, I think for some of us who've come up with a certain age, I mean, a story has become a myth, and I mean that in this one meaning of the word myth. It's just become legend. It's there, and yet for a lot of us, we didn't really know the whole story, did we?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us knew the tentpoles of the story, the kind of basic structure of her story. But I think what Dan and TJ are getting at with this film that was exciting to us, and hopefully will be exciting to audiences, is that they're not only interested in the details of the story, but they're also interested in the story of the story. There's a sort of meta level to the film that I think raises some really interesting philosophical and existential questions about one's legacy and one's relationship to one's own story. And I think, we were so privileged to be able for Tina to sit down, in her 80th year, and start to reflect on her feelings about her own story. And I think that gives the film, a freshness and a point of view that hopefully, for viewers who know the story, will be exciting. And for those who know the story less, they'll get the story, but they'll also get the context of the story within Tina's full life.
I'm not going to go into details of the plot of the film in the sense of we don't want to do spoiler alerts, and it's well worth. It's the quickest 2 hours I can remember, I must say.
That's a compliment.
I've had in a while. That's but Simon, what new insights does this film offer up?
I think Tina herself and her kind of engagement with the story of her life in this film does feel unique. I haven't seen Tina talk in this way about her story. And part of that is we interviewed Tina in 2018, right? So that was pretty much the first thing that we did. You know, she didn't want to sit for a very long time. You know, we totally got that. She was never going to be she was never going to sort of be telling her story in that form, in a sort of very granular way. But I think what actually Dan and TJ got to in that relatively short interview was a sort of the sweetness and the modesty and the dignity and the sort of kind of, I don't want to say ordinariness, because she's not ordinary, but the kind of the lack of airs and graces that actually Tina Turner has in abundance. And that I think will be surprising to people. You know, she talks in a very sweet way about her relationship with Erwin, her current husband, you know.
Yeah.
Talks in a very forgiving way about Ike.
Yeah.
But also we have these tapes that we discovered, these research tapes. That one was the tape that the research interview that Kurt Loder did with Tina for their book, I, Tina. And the other was the research interview that the journalist who kind of broke the story of Tina's abuse for People magazine in the early 80s, Carl Arrington, did. And those tapes also, I think, offer a very, very different side of Tina. They're sort of raw. They were never intended for publication. So there's a very sort of intimate, raw, quite not that far from the events she's talking about, quite emotional Tina that you're hearing. So to me, that is the revelation of the film. It's Tina the person, you know, in a way you've never heard her before.